Call to order this workshop for the Siloam Springs Board of Directors to cover our budget. And Christina, I believe you are going to do that for us.
Yes, Mayor. This evening, I would like to finish the significant variances within the budget and then provide a recap of revenue and expenses. So airport revenue begins on page 66. Revenue is expected to increase $130,000. Fuel sales are expected to increase by $192,000 based on trend. Prior year included a grant for $62,000. And it's important to note that we do not include any grant income until the grants are approved. On page 67 begins expenditures. This is the first time fuel cost has been segregated as cost of goods sold. The increase of 75% is based on increased sales. There's a personnel increase of 14%, which includes the proposed wage increases. Fuel rebates increased by $7,500 based on expected purchases. And depreciation will increase by almost $27,000. Overall, operations increased by $41,000 or 7%. On page 68, capital outlay. The only thing budgeted here is the matching for a grant, a runway pavement and lights grant. The current cost for that is actually estimated by Garver to come in at $3.2 million. However, we do expect that the state will pick up the other 10%. We are just budgeting kind of as an in case. And on page 69, there are no changes to the personnel schedule. Are there any questions related to this fund? Street fund revenue begins on page 70. Overall, revenues will decrease by 15% or $818,000. The changes include a property tax increase of 13% or $66,000. Sales tax is up $190,000 or 9%. Street impact fees are up $15,000 based on trend. State aid is up almost $91,000 based on the budget provided by the state. Grant revenue is not budgeted until the grants are awarded. And in 2022, there was a $671,000 grant included in revenue. The general fund transferred $500,000 for the Lake Francis rebuild in 2022, and no transfers are budgeted for 2023. Page 71 begins expenditures. Personnel costs increased 9%. The proposed raises are offset by a decline in benefit pay and changes in benefit elections. Operations increased 17%. Administrative department charges increased by almost 60,000. Insurance increased 24%. Vehicle operation increased 33,000 due to increased fuel prices. Winter weather supplies are up 30,000 based on trend. Dues and training increased 12,500 due to costs related to CDL license training. Major capital projects are listed on page 72. These include Sager Creek Drive for $1,058,000. Dogwood Drainage from Highway 412 to Tulsa for $180,000. Tulsa Middle School Drainage for $225,000. And the Harvard Street Side Path matching grant funds in the amount of $255,000. Page 73 has the major capital asset purchases, which includes the purchase of a mid-size track hoe for $145,000, a sidearm mowing tractor for $127,000, and a tri-axle dump truck for $180,000. On page 74, there are no changes to the personnel schedule. And are there any questions related to this fund?
Christine,
Go ahead, Carol. Sorry.
on the sidearm mowing tractor, what's the difference between that and just the regular mowers that we've bought?
Style mower that we use. It has an arm on the side of it that comes down so that we can mow down in the ditches. We don't typically have, we don't have but one tractor that doesn't have an arm mower on it.
So that takes care of that elevation. Yeah, okay, thank you.
So on Sager Creek, is that us in-house? So do we have a contractor? Because I know we're struggling, right, to find anybody available to bid?
Currently, we are having an issue. However, when we put this in the budget, we put it in at contractor price. That was, I mean, we put the budget together much earlier than the most recent bid for the street.
The plan is that we would have to contract that out, so that's why it's at a contractor price. And until the budget's approved, until we get the bid specs, we won't, go to bid, but we are just estimating the contractor price back in July, August.
I'm just curious if we, I know we're sending Lake Francis out for a second bid. So if we don't get anything on that, then what makes us optimistic we're gonna have actually somebody gonna show up for this one? I'm just curious.
I don't know if I'm optimistic, but I know if I don't put it in the budget,
I know.
I won't be able to go to bid with it. So that's the next big street project, is to try to rebuild that old concrete street. And with all the other projects that we had, we felt like, that needed to go to a contractor just like Lake Francis. So no guarantees that a contractor will bid on it, but if we don't put it in the budget and try to move it forward, we won't have it in the budget, or we won't have the project on the project list.
Anything else, Brad?
Well, I have a lot about streets, but it's not a budget conversation, so.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, David.
the very last item on the street department list there, the Harvard Street Side Path, it says 30% match. where are we getting the 30%? Is it a grant?
The other 70% would be a grant, yes.
Okay, so we are paying 30%. Okay.
30%, yes.
I just had some residents ask me that live over there, and I said, I'm pretty sure it's coming, so I couldn't remember if we were 30 or we were getting a grant for 30, or I just was curious, so.
I'm not sure where we are in the approval of the grant. That's why the grant revenue is not budgeted yet.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I guess not. Thank you.
So the final fund is internal service fund for healthcare. And the revenue for that begins on page 75. Revenues are made up of employee contributions, city contributions made based on budgeted positions, and interest income. The city is increasing its contribution by 3% in 2023. Employee premiums will remain the same as in 2022. Page 76 shows the expenditures. All expenses are for healthcare claims, reinsurance premiums, which limit the city's liability for individuals with excess care costs, and plan administration costs, including federal taxes. So are there any questions related to this fund? I think we can move on to the revenue and expense recap. To recap the budget as presented, there is $82.2 million in revenues, $5.7 million in taxes, $6.4 million in intergovernmental assistance, $48.5 million in charges for services, $12.6 million from other sources, and $9 million in funding from restricted sources. Total expenses, excluding non-cash expenses, total $80.7 million. $18 million is for costs of goods sold, which is the power costs and fuel purchased for resale. $24.2 million for personnel costs. Operations of $13 million. Debt service of $3.9 million. $11.7 million in capital expense, and $9.9 million in transfers. The additional revenues are proposed to be added to the city's fund balance, and the proposed budget may be amended by the board during the budget approval process. Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Christina, I've got a question. Reviewing my notes from last year, I don't know if this was done this last year or if it's something that we were going to do and didn't do, but there was mention of a traffic study for Allen Elementary. Does anybody know if that got done?
Yes. The Allen Elementary traffic study was done. I'm waiting on the results of the traffic study because we also you requested one for the, I believe, south side on Tulsa.
Yeah.
And they've done that, I believe. I just haven't seen the results yet. And as soon as we get the results, we want to sit down with the school, because the school hopefully will participate in some road improvements.
That was on one of the pages that Christina had given us that was change pages,
Yes.
and that was a cover, and I just remembered that I didn't know if we'd done that or not. And then I know, Christina, this has been asked, and I know you've answered it. What is the COVID-19 thing that's in every department? I know it's a small amount of money, but
It's
people
for-
ask that, and I'm like, I can't tell you.
It's for cleaning supplies, hand
Okay.
sanitizer, that type of thing.
When I got asked on the street, I was like, well, I know we got some federal money, but I'm, so I didn't know. But then looking at it, yeah, it's not very much money. Thank you.
Yes, Carol?
I do have a question, because when we're looking at the airport and then I see the fuel, it makes me think, where do we, fuel that we use at the police department?
Typically, that is going to be coded to your vehicle operation and in each department. And again, I'll be bringing about a budget amendment with the annual budget amendment that I do for the fuel, because the price has increased.
Director Smiley, would you pull the mic closer?
Yes,
Thank you.
there.
Anyone else?
Another question, Mayor.
Yes.
Christina, at the beginning of this year, I had COVID and I couldn't make the first two meetings, but there were quite a few budget amendments for equipment and other stuff. Is there a reason we don't go ahead and put those in this budget now?
Those were actually added to the 2022 budget.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, I'm saying if they're amended in January of '22, then why wouldn't we have known them for the '22 budget back in late '21? Because there were there were several amendments in the first month.
We actually waited a little bit to try to gather all the information from all the departments on all, because there were quite a number of things that did not come in, and we wanted to make sure that we got them all into the budget amendment. So what we did was we just amended the 2022 budget as soon as we had all of that data together.
Okay. I wasn't able to ask that when those occurred in January, and I didn't understand if we just didn't know we needed them, or if the data, and I realize now that the data you get for the budget comes well in advance of even October, and then, before everything's said and done.
We tried to give it until the end of the year. Some things were thought they might be coming in, but we weren't sure, so we wanted to make sure we included everything.
Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, Philip, do you have any comments?
Back to the Director Allen's comments about the budget amendments. We try to get everything in the budget, Director Allen. I just went back and looked, and there were two in January. One was, where's Chief Kreiner? One was related to an ambulance purchase that we didn't see, or we didn't have the opportunity until right at the end of, I think, 2021, when it became available, and it was after the budget had been approved. And the other one was for the broadband study, that we were going through that process as the budget had already been published and drafted. And then we did that right at the beginning of the year also to start that broadband study. So those were things that weren't on the horizon in the beginning of July and August and September, when we were putting the budget together, and weren't really ready to put it in the budget till certain things had moved forward. So I'm like you, I don't like bringing budget amendments in the, right after the budget's been approved. That's not something we want to do, but there are times when we don't have a choice, so.
Anyone else?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Brad?
we have a small marathon of time left. Are we able to talk about budget amendments now, or are we gonna wait till that comes up, or is that within?
We could
I
discuss them,
would-
but you'd have to
Are we gonna
propose
go on
them
dinner
at the
break?
budget.
Well, you can discuss them, obviously, but when the time comes to make the motion, they need to be included in a
I
motion.
understand
But
that.
it's your workshop.
Well, just like what we had November 10th of last year, Christina had a list of things that after the third workshop were obvious. Is there anything that's not like printed but in here?
The only thing that we had is, it's in the budget memo for the resolution approving it, I think, is to
Right.
change the 250,000 to 500,000 for Sager Creek
Right.
and delete the reference
Right.
to the
Median.
second phase medium, just basically moving that money over there. That's the one that we had, based on the discussion that we had
Just
here.
that, yeah.
Yes.
Just in the last few meetings.
Right, right.
Just having this, because there were several things, is there anything else that you guys are like other departments or anybody thinking?
We're
will
not,
come
we're
down?
not proposing any other amendments to the budget at this time. So, I suspect that, there will be some budget amendments around the end of the first quarter of next year. One of the things we just found out, and Steve or Tony can speak to this better than I can, but we've been working the wastewater treatment plant on a 2009 permit from the state, that they have not renewed the permit since 2009. And it's been a relatively good thing for us, because in 2009, we only had to do certain laboratory testing once a week. They've issued the draft permit out for public comment, and it's going to require 5 days a week testing of certain chemicals.
There's been 2 governors since then.
Yes. And that cost is, for one lab test, the cost is $200. So right now it's $200 per week. If they don't change the permit requirements, that cost is going to go up to $1,000 a week. We don't even have a lab yet that can do that kind of testing. So there's likely to be a future budget amendment. We had a discussion internally. I didn't want to propose it yet because the permit hasn't been officially issued. There's public comment time. We've got enough money to get through the first quarter to try to see how it's really going to work, but that's one that's likely to be in. Christina will bring budget amendments for the 2022 budget in the near future in December. And what you'll see, the biggest one of those that you haven't already approved, is going to be fuel. I mean, the fuel cost went skyrocketing. Our fuel increased dramatically. However, in 2014, when the city bought the police station building and converted it, and we created our own fuel facility, the savings on that for the city is huge because of that. I mean, if not, our fuel costs would have been probably doubled or tripled.
Because we used to go directly to commercial stations,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yeah. Beyond that change I said about the wastewater treatment plant, I'm not aware of anything else today that's likely to come in early in the first, at the end of the first quarter of next year. I'm not saying there won't be others. I think this group that you have here today, and I asked all the division managers to be here in case you had specific questions about their budgets. Department heads see it, but, department heads, Don and Steve, have huge divisions, right?
Right.
I would submit that this group that you see here tonight is some of the best folks that I've worked with trying to put budgets together. And we sit down, they submit budgets, we try to identify everything we can. We try to determine capital projects as being critical or necessary or beneficial. I would love to be able to fund all the beneficial ones, but there are times we can't. There are other needs. So sometimes we have to knock those off. Sometimes we have to knock off the necessary ones and just focus on critical. But the point is, we try to identify everything going forward in next year, but it's just, it's a crystal ball. We're not going to see all the threats that come in, like the case of the permit for the wastewater treatment plant. But we're doing everything we can not to try to have budget amendments, especially as we did last year in January of 2022, right after the budget was.
If they come at the end of the first quarter, that's understandable. When they were there in January, I was like, what?
Same with
Yeah.
me. Trust me. You can ask Chief Kreiner. I was like, at the first meeting, are you kidding me?
Now,
And-
the permit, is that something that's required yearly or every
I
5
believe it
years, or
was every 5 years.
every 5 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but we haven't, I think staff talked to AEDQ about why is this being required 5 times a week when it's only been required once, and the response was, just be thankful you've been lucky that you haven't had a new permit since 2009, or you would have been required to do this years ago.
Yeah.
So,
They always know how to turn it around. don't
yes,
they?
yeah, I mean, other ones that have new permits, they've been doing it already for the last 4 or 5 years, right? So we've been lucky from that standpoint. But I want to wait to see what the real cost is, because we have to find a new lab. Currently, our cost is $200 per test. It may increase once we find a new lab that can do the testing. It's 5 days a week, but the lab has to be open on Saturday, and not, the lab that we're using is not open on Saturday, so.
Along those lines on fuel, so at the airport with the increase, and I know we went digital, but do we make any profit off that fuel?
Yes.
Where do we roll that? Does it go back to the airport or general fund, or?
So, yes.
Yes, so the fuel sales are all in the airport. I mean, that's airport revenue is the fuel sales.
Stays in there, it stays in the
It
pocket.
does. Mhm.
You can see we do there's always been this rebate program. The more fuel someone purchases, the greater their rebate is, but there's still a profit made there. Even with what would be considered relatively inexpensive jet fuel for airplanes compared to other airports, we still make a profit off it.
Then, obviously my question on Sager, which the amendment is great, but that leaves another, a little over 12 grand, well, 12,708 left from that median project. Is that gonna go to the lab, or does that just go back to general fund?
That would go back to general fund.
Anyone else? Kristen, anything else that you have at this time?
That was all I had.
Okay. Then I suppose that we will adjourn this workshop, and we will reconvene at 6:30 for our regular board meeting. Thank you. Call to order this regular meeting of the Siloam Springs Board of Directors, November 15th, 2022. Roll call.
Sappington.
Here.
Smiley.
Here.
Burns.
Here,
Hunt.
Here.
Allen.
Here.
Carroll.
Here.
Ressler.
If you all will please stand with me as Director Smiley leads us in a word of prayer, and then please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Heavenly Father, we are thankful for so many blessings you have given our community and for this great day. We are thankful for the opportunity to come together for our community. We ask you to give us the ability to make wise and careful decisions in the best interest of our citizens, and we pray that you keep our community safe and healthy and watch over our community, our nation, and all those who serve and protect us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. And at this time, I would like to ask anyone that has an electronic device, please silence that. And before we get started, directors, I am going to ask each of you to pull your microphones to you. I realize that it may sound loud to you, however, our recordings are not being heard. They're not coming through plainly, and sometimes they're not hearing us at all. So I would ask that you please do that so that we have all of the meeting recorded plainly. So I appreciate that. So next we will move on to public input. Is there anyone here that would like to address the board on any item that is not on our regular agenda? Please come forward, give us your name, address, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Arthur Holbert, 20705 Highway 16, Siloam Springs, President of Siloam Springs Chamber of Commerce. It's good to see you guys. and appreciate you all taking the time to allow me to answer your questions at the last city board meeting.
You pull it just a little closer to
Can you hear me
if
okay?
can, Arthur.
Okay. Hopefully you heard that I said thank you.
Yes,
So we got that.
thank you.
All right. So anyway, while last time was rushed, I do appreciate you guys taking the time to allow me to answer the questions. Tonight I want to share 3 bits of good news for us for services that the Chamber's provided for the city just recently. A lot of good things going on, as you guys all know, in our community, Siloam Springs across Northwest Arkansas. Yesterday I was fortunate to be part of a 4-person panel representing Northwest Arkansas in the city of Siloam Springs for a large delegation of 16 counties consisting of Tennessee, Chattanooga area, Georgia, Alabama, who came to Northwest Arkansas to learn about what's going on here in Siloam Springs. They want to learn about regionalism, economic development. And that meeting I was able to highlight Siloam Springs' place as an important regional stakeholder and a catalyst that has made Northwest Arkansas one of the best places in the country to live, work, play, and do business. I was also able to highlight the voice Siloam Springs has impact into the Northwest Council and also to the Western Benton County Coalition. This Thursday, so in 2 days, at Philip's request, I'll be representing the city of Siloam Springs for a potential media opportunity for a PBS national show, The Travel Detective, who wants to film a cover story titled Hidden Gems in Northwest Arkansas. So if a decision is made to proceed, the filming will consist of a 4-day shoot in Northwest Arkansas, about 12 to 14 minutes. Siloam, Northwest Arkansas will be able to use that film footage. The segment would air on Travel Detective. In addition, would be streaming digitally over Amazon Prime Video, Apple TV, short video, basically going throughout the country. They're looking at it hitting 1.9 million households, 2.3 million viewers per episode on the Travel Detective. In terms of the cost, we're going to learn more about that on Thursday, but it's a great opportunity for Siloam Springs to highlight Northwest Arkansas, and we're happy to be a part of it. Last but not least, I know we talked a little bit about the golf course in Siloam Springs. As previously discussed, the Siloam Springs Chamber of Commerce has been trying to help save it. I have great news to report to you all, and I know that Brian Menace with Maxim Golf will also probably speak. The good news is to report, per Brian Menace with Maxim Golf, today we've helped raise approximately $90,000 in pledges from private donations, not city, but private donations. And we're climbing, of which $1,500 was from the Siloam Springs Chamber of Commerce. Basically, I'm confident we'll hit our goals and that the better days ahead for us for the golf course, for the city, and for Northwest Arkansas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arthur. Is there anyone else?
Madam Mayor and Directors, I'm Brian Menace with Maxim Golf, and so I just wanted to follow up with what Arthur said. We have some exciting news. It's good news. We've raised, between monies we've collected and pledges, right at $93,000 prior to the city's commitment. I just wanted to come today and thank the city for their commitment to their land and to the golf course opportunity for the citizens. There's been no question that as we've reached out to people asking them for their support, the city's leadership in the matter has been crucial. And so I think without question we wouldn't be where we are today if the city hadn't kind of led the way. And so I just wanted to come and thank you personally for your commitment to that and the support of the golf course. I also want to thank Arthur. Arthur and the Chamber have been more than instrumental in helping us do that as well. Arthur and the Chamber have organized a number of meetings which we've attended with civic leaders, business owners, and individuals who also want to keep golf alive in Siloam Springs. And those people they've shown up and listened to what we've had to say, and they've made some generous donations and pledges that have helped us get to where we are today. And so, again, I just want to say thank you to each of you, and tell you what a privilege it's been so far. We're already spending that money that we've raised out there to revitalize the golf course, and I'll let other people talk about at some point what they think they're seeing, but we feel confident that we're in a very good and strong position, and at least for the foreseeable future, there'll continue to be golf for the citizens and the student athletes and the others that enjoy the golf course amenity. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Is there anyone else?
Curtis Smith, 218 South Wright Street, Siloam Springs, Arkansas. I am the president of the club of the Siloam Springs Golf Club.
I just wanted to, Madam Mayor, Board, thank you all. I really appreciate this. It's been quite a journey. Couldn't have been possible without the help of Administrator Patterson. Grateful for that. The people of Simmons, the good people of Simmons, grateful for them to help me get started with this and to get moving in the right direction. Maxim Golf showing up and being the right people for the job is hugely helpful. Super excited about what is going on. This all couldn't have been accomplished without Arthur Holbert and the Chamber of Commerce. They have been instrumental with me. They were one of the first groups that I stepped up to and said, hey, I think we need help. What do we got to do? And Arthur has been there the whole way. I'm super grateful for them. He's a champion of this community, along with Administrator Patterson. You're grateful to have them both. Grateful to have you guys on the board. So thankful. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Curtis. Is there anyone else? You bet.
I'm Betsy Blair Finn, 710 Red Oak Street Drive, Siloam Springs, Arkansas. There's something I would like the board to consider. Change when there is public input on agenda items. What it feels like or reminds me of at the moment is if I'm sitting in a classroom and the teacher hasn't done the lecture yet and she asks if I have input or questions. Nothing has been discussed, so I can't really have input or questions. I know it used to be that it was after directors' comments and directors speaking that citizens could have input. And I would like y'all to consider that again, because the way it feels right now is that citizens are excluded from the conversation. They can have input before y'all start talking, but not afterwards. So I feel like it would be a great way to make the citizens more part of the conversation. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? If not, is there anyone that would like to address the board concerning any item that is on our consent agenda? If not, then we will move on to the consent agenda. Excuse me. Item A, workshop minutes, November 1st, 2022. B, regular meeting minutes, November 1st, 2022. C, annual chemical bids, Public Works Department, Water-Wastewater Division, multiple vendors and cost. Item D, consent in lieu of annual meeting of the Illinois Water Resource Company. Directors, is there any item that you would like to have removed from this consent agenda for separate consideration? There being none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next, we will move on to our regularly scheduled items, which is ordinances. Ordinance 22-25, second reading, amending section 102-21 of the City Municipal Code, rezoning from A1 to C1A, 409 North Country Club Road. Ben?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the board. Just as a reminder, this is the second reading of the rezoning at 409 North Country Club to the C1A zone district. We have not received any additional comments since the first reading, and staff is still recommending approval, and we're available for any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address ordinance 22-25? There is not. Directors, comments or questions? There being none, do I have a motion to place ordinance 22-25 on its second reading, suspending the rules and reading title only?
So moved?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Philip?
Ordinance number 22-25, an ordinance amending section 102-21 of the Siloam Springs Municipal Code City Zoning Map, rezoning from A1 to C1A property located at 409 North Country Club Road.
Next is our resolutions. Resolution 63-22, preliminary plat development permit for Castlewood Edition, 22-100 and 22-200 block of Davidson Road. Ben?
Yes, thank you again, Madam Mayor. Ben Rhodes, Senior Planner. So what we're looking at is a tabled item from the November 1st Board of Directors meeting. As the Mayor stated, this is the 22-100 to 2200 block of Davidson Road. The request is to split one track into 100 single-family lots, creating the Castlewood addition. And a further note on that is that this project was approved in 2021, but has since expired, which is why it's coming back before the board for consideration. So here is this again, the site plan, what you saw last time. On the left is the layout of the subdivision with 3 entrances off of Davidson Road and cul-de-sacs coming off of to left there, detention in the center off of the first cul-de-sac there. In addition to that, there is an extension of off-site road improvements. So the subdivision ends on this corner, and they're extending, or not extending, but making improvements to Davidson Road towards Country Club in an effort to improve the overall traffic quality in that area. So going into that and a little bit more particulars, what we're looking at is in a 1645 foot in length for a 22-foot wide street, and that will have a 4-foot side gravel shoulders. So the master street plan requires that to be a 32-foot wide roadway. However, the plan does allow for some latitude to lower this width requirement when there are physical constraints such as steep road embankments or other issues such as limited right-of-way width. So engineering staff recommends using the county road standard in this instance, which would be consistent with the 22-foot wide paved surface. And with that, I'd like to invite Kevin Moore, city engineer, to address the street design and drainage. Kevin?
Thank you, Ben. Madam Mayor. Kevin Moore, city engineer. I'd like to pick up where Ben left off and discuss Davidson Road, extending from Heiko Street to Country Club. That road varies in width from 17 feet to 20 feet. These constraints led us, rather than requesting a more typical design of approximately 27 feet, which we like to do with constrained roadways, that led us to the 22-foot county standard that you see proposed to you today. Heiko Street is approximately 250 feet closer to the property. However, because of the bend at the west end of Davidson Road and because of the sightlines at Heiko, staff selected Country Club as the primary access for this subdivision. You can see here Heiko Street at the Davidson intersection facing south. That hill crests 215 feet away from the intersection. The minimum stopping sight distance on a slight grade like this for northbound traffic is 315 feet. And so that creates a dangerous intersection at Heiko. Country Club is significantly safer. You can see approximately 700 feet to the north and 850 feet to the south. And Davidson Road intersects at a right angle. Country Club is designated as a collector with a standard 9,000 vehicles per day. Existing traffic counts done by the city, and then expected traffic generated by already approved developments place the expected vehicles per day at 5,483, with an additional 957 vehicles per day from this subdivision. That would place us at 71% of the capacity, with about half of the road from Davidson to to Sherry Whitlock already being developed, and about half to be developed by future developments that would improve those. On Davidson Road as well, they will be adding culverts underneath the existing driveways as they they widen to that 22-foot section. Returning to the site drains entirely to the west, away from Mission Hills and the Commons, Songbird Lane, that subdivision there. So the majority of the site drains north to Flint Creek and to City Lake, and then a small portion of the site seen here for Study Area 3 drains west to Middle Flint Creek, the distinction being that joins west of City Lake. The historic drainage patterns are maintained by the proposed design, with the majority of the site being routed through the detention pond at Study Point 2. All study points meet the drainage criteria manual for reduction in peak flows in all storm events. And I'll return it to Ben to discuss subdivision regulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yes, Ben Rhodes again. So we're looking also at the subdivision regulations as part of the criteria for approval. And so I want to cover with you some of the prescriptive criteria used for staff recommendation for that approval. And this criteria is specific to set standards, not requiring extensive interpretation as to what would meet the code or not. It's either it meets it or it doesn't. So in terms of the lot width, the subdivision regs say that lots have to be at least 65 feet wide and no less than 7,000 square feet in lot area. We have met both criteria at 69.84 is the most narrow of all the lots, and we have a 8299 square foot or larger for the lot sizes. As far as sewer, if they weren't served by sewer, we would need them to be even wider, but these lots will be served by city sewer, so that criteria doesn't apply the second bullet there. As far as the second part of the thing we look at is the preliminary plat process, as far as what goes into the procedural steps needed pertaining to review meetings, plan submittals, in preparation for the review for the Planning Commission and City Board of Directors. Staff reviewed the application, and we concur that the applicant has met these procedural requirements. There was a pre-application meeting held in 2021 that was considered sufficient for the resubmittal of the identical subdivision this round. So you are pretty familiar with this part of the code, Chapter 54, but these are the more subjective review criteria that I'll go over one by one with you to just let you know where we came up with our recommendation. So for criteria 1, we're looking at make sure that it does not interfere with other owners' reasonable peace and enjoyment of their property. Staff has found no reasonable causes which would interfere with neighbors' peace and enjoyment. The key term here is what's considered reasonable. Housing alone typically is not cited as a cause for interference of the peace. Castlewood's density is less than that of the crossings. That's the neighborhood to the east, which is at 4.7 units per acre, while Castlewood is at 3.3 units per acre. As Kevin covered, the traffic will increase, but not beyond the capacity of the affected roadways. The new hard surface road will help accommodate traffic increases. The second criteria is will it be compatible with and respect the context of its location and the character of the surrounding existing or planned neighborhoods. Neighborhood 1 was designated for this area on the future land use map, and that's the new one that we just adopted. This is designed for 2 to 6 dwelling units per acre. Again, this development is at 3.3 units per acre. So the design matches the area's character as intended through the land use plan. And here is just a visual layout for you of how this would fit into the neighborhood context. We're seeing the subject property, Castlewood, being the one on the left with the red rectangle around it. To the right, this is the crossings right here, and then we have the Mission Hills, and then Endura Park down here, where you can see essentially the lot layout and whatnot of those subdivisions. And of all those, Castlewood has actually the largest lots compared to some of the other areas. So moving on, criteria 3, we want to make sure that this will not, whether by the nature of its use, by its siding, design, or of streets, landscaping, tend to burden the future, present or future uses of neighboring properties in accordance with the zoning standards and the subdivision regulations. And so with the others, we have found no aspects of the proposed housing addition that would create such burdens. The lot sizes are larger than the occupied lots to the east, and as such, the corresponding house sizes should also be larger. As typically, as lot sizes increase, the home size typically will be proportional to that increase as well. So moving to the fourth criteria, we want to make sure that it's adequately supported by infrastructure, including without limitation, water, sewer system, streets, and drainage. So the water will tie into the east and the sewer to a manhole in the southwest. And there will be a need for an off-site easement, and that was one of the staff suggested conditions, to have the easement for the sewer that will connect right over there, right just circled. The developer is also aware of the issue of the electric transformers and provided a letter through his attorney that they will not hold the city responsible for the lack of transformers, and a separate agreement as shown in the condition of approval will be needed with the final plat acceptance, and that's the standard developer agreement that we've been doing ever since we've had the issue with the transformers, and we have employed those on 3 different other subdivisions to date. So moving on to the fifth criteria, we want to make sure that it's consistent with sound planning, city's growth in terms of health, safety, convenience within the neighborhood and the affected vicinity. Planning staff found no critical flaws with the design to account for any unsound planning. The area will be improved because Davidson Road will go from unpaved gravel road to a paved road, which will improve traffic safety and also will cut down on the dust to neighboring homes, as travel on dirt or gravel roads generate some dust feedback. The proposed lot sizes at an averaging of around 10,000 square feet will fit a niche needed in the community for larger size lots for an executive level homes, which we've talked about before in the housing study from last year. These lots are similar to the ones in Stonecrest. We don't believe starter homes will likely be built in this neighborhood due to the larger lot sizes. And I'll also be showing some images of what the homes will potentially look like in a few slides. So just the final criteria, I did bunch these 3 together because they're kind of somewhat related, but just want to make sure that they are on a correct survey, have the correct lot boundaries, any existing proposed streets, it has consistent lots and streets that conform to neighboring municipal code, and that every lot is buildable. It has access to a public street, and of course we looked at that, and the proposed land survey meets these criteria as shown on the preliminary plat. So I'm going to transition a little bit just to the comprehensive plan. As you all know, this is not inside the city limits. This is outside, so there's no zoning. But we do want to make sure that what we're building out there is consistent with the comp plan as much as possible. It's not zoning, but we do look at that. So we have, as I mentioned, it is a neighborhood one's criteria, and that calls for density of the 2 to 6 dwelling units per acre. This is, as I mentioned earlier, is 3.3, which falls within that range. Staff will also be requesting a condition that neighborhood covenants are filed with the final plat. We would also ask that a plat note is filed as part of the final plat approval process to ensure that single-family housing is provided as planned. And that's because there is no zoning. So the plat note will somewhat lock in that land use requirement into the subdivision. Finally, when there are new utilities extended to the area, the pre-annexation agreements wording can be added to ensure consistency with the plan as shown by the developer. And as promised, here are some of the elevations that were provided. As these are just examples of the style of homes that are planned in the subdivision. These were provided by the applicant. And just note on these, I believe they all have 3-car garages with brick or masonry facades, and the homes appear to be about 1 story to 1.5 stories tall. And then lastly, here's the site view looking to the north. Staff and the Planning Commission remain recommending approval of the subdivision, and we are available for any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this Castlewood addition resolution? Ron?
Good evening. Ron Holmeyer, Civil Engineering, 701 South Mount Olive. Couple of points that I want to make sure that they're on the record. One is the developer is here tonight. He is confirmed that this is intended to be a single-family subdivision. He has all the lots under contract with a builder who will be building the single-family homes. The home sizes are going to be between 2,000 and 2,300 square feet, so they're not likely to be starter homes, although in this day and age they could still be. There's no objections to the required statement about the single-family homes, because that's been the proposal all along. They will have protective covenants. He's got an example of them with him tonight, which we didn't I didn't get in time to forward so that y'all could see them, but there will be protective covenants. One other thing just to put on the record, because I didn't hear anybody actually say this, but the county standard is a 22-foot paved asphalt surface with a 4-foot gravel shoulder on each side for a total of 30 feet of road base. It's not just a 22-foot road, it's 30 feet total. And so with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions anybody has.
Thank you, Ron. Is there anyone else?
Jeff Farmer, 21923 Davidson Road, here in Siloam. I live on the south side of Davidson Road between Castlewood and Country Club. And I was wondering, I guess we do have representatives from the builders from the site project, but I was reading I'll try to keep it under 3 minutes or but I was reading on page 7 of that of the city agenda about they were going to be asking for like 90-foot road right-of-ways through there, and I'm not right sure if that would ever. My neighbors don't care anything about that. I don't care about it either, so I probably say no on that. Now the page that has all of our the way the street will look. I heard some different numbers than what we actually got printed out here. Instead of like, it says like what we have is like 22-foot wide streets, 4-foot gravel on the side of that, and then you have 10-foot ditches on each side of it. And I know that's only like now I've lived out there 30 years, and some of the old fences are still there. When I went out and measured them, I measured right at about 18 feet from the center line to the old fences and such. And so I wasn't quite sure, whenever you start widening right-of-ways where you're going to have things like fences to move and poles and meters maybe and mailboxes and things like that. And I was just wondering who's going to be responsible for that. Or are the builders going to be paying for all that kind of stuff to go along with like house entrances, driveway entrances and things like that. And I think, let's see what else I got. All the utilities on Davidson Road is on the south side in front of my house. And we got 5 different public utilities that goes up through there. And whenever we're talking about running city electric to this non-annexed part over here, what kind of route are they talking about getting there? I don't care to have another set of telephone poles or highline poles in my yard or anything like that, So that's really the question I have for for y'all tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Is there anyone else?
Mayor, didn't Ron say that it'll be 30 feet total, I think?
I believe, Ron, can you come up, please?
Ron Holmeyer again. Yes, there's from edge of base to edge of base is 30 feet. You've got 4 foot of gravel shoulder on each side and then 22 foot of asphalt.
You
And
can't hear.
I'm sorry, I was looking at David instead of at the microphone. I'll say
And the
that
mic's
again.
not tall enough for Ron.
I hear you. Yeah, pull it up a little bit. So,
Thanks, David. Yes, it's 30 foot from edge of gravel to edge of gravel. And then there will be 22 feet of asphalt centered in that, on that 30-foot roadbed.
20 or, what did you say, 20?
22 feet.
22, okay.
Yes, sir. So it's 22 feet of asphalt with a 4-foot gravel shoulder on each side. And as far as the moving of fences and utilities and mailboxes and all that, then, I mean, obviously if we're widening the road, then the developer will work with the property owners to get all those moved.
okay, thank you. Mr. Farmer, did that answer what you were asking?
Yes, sir. My name's Kevin Nally with Norrell LLC, one of the partners and the owners of the property. And we would, if we do widen the road, if we get approval from the board of directors, we would be working with you and incurring the cost to move whatever we'll need to, as far as probably put in new culverts, I'm sure, for some of them. And then we'll need to move fences and everything else, whatever to meet, whatever the right of way is or the easement is.
Very good.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? If not, directors, we are ready for questions and comments from you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I think Mr. Farmer also had a question about the utility lines. Right, do we have an answer for that?
Is
Johnny's over there.
John? Okay.
John Bland, Electric Superintendent. Jeff, we would be coming in from like Mission Hills, in from the rear, if we wouldn't come down the road.
You wouldn't be coming to
No, we wouldn't be on Davidson.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Brad.
Well, I brought it up and much conversation and the city attorney got involved because everybody got scared and it sounds like the city's going to do what they always do. They're going to bring it from the rear. So this will be fun, won't it? You're welcome, Mindy. I think the concern is, and we've had a year has passed. A lot has changed in a year. And Ben, that's a great sales pitch. You did a fantastic job giving us all the details. I think the subdivision's fantastic. There's no doubt about that. Rooftop economics we talked about, upgraded housing that's all true. What it doesn't take away from the conversation is after you leave that subdivision, you go to a county restricted road. Is it improvement? Yes, it is an improvement. But what we learned before, and if we look at a lawless area, is that when this board in the future annexes that property in, and it is going to happen, these enclaves, because he's got a pre-annexation, and we are going to inherit some things out there, and the question is, are we inheriting a problem? Are we improving that? And so the number one was, my question for the city was simply taking the city standard all the way to country club. Long-term makes sense. A lot of the residents don't like any improvement out there because on Mission Hills, if we remember, the folks that were next to it didn't like that subdivision coming in because they built in the country. And so if we think back, and I'm just recalling my time on the board and having citizens come up, As a board member, I have to give the citizens a voice, and like anybody else, I have to ask the questions. And so the number one is, why can't we extend that city requirement all the way? And I know it's a cost burden, and I know the county doesn't work well with the city. And so that's my concern. You have this great city standard in front of a great subdivision improvement. There's no doubt about it. But then we go down to a county standard. And then we have the drainage issue to contend with, even though we've made improvement with crime development, if we recall that, on the top side to the east. If you remember all that development there, and we filled that in, they had to do some detention, retention, and some drainage issues there. And then we still get the country club, and I know it's 71% of the capacity because you said it is, but at the end of the day, unless you drive that on a regular basis, we look at where we put the overpass on North Country Club by the Sager Creek, and you see a small widening of a standard of a street, and then we have the ramps, and then we constrict back down on the city end and on our end. And so at the end of the day, Country Club is, the odds of folks doing that are limited. They're going to be dumping out onto Sherry Whitlock, which that is all fantastic because it's designed for that. And so as the board member for that particular area, those were my concerns, and that's why I brought those up. And they still are my concerns. They're all improvements being made. There's no doubt about that. It just, I don't want to be the board member that doesn't bring up that question in 10 years from now when you annex that in. They're going to want to know why we didn't address it in the front end and why we're going to take it in the back end, and then they're going to have to come up with more street fund money. The sales, most of the citizens of Siloam obviously passed that sales tax that will grow in development, but our streets are streets, curbs, and gutters will be, they're going to get amplified starting next year, and it's going to be a voice, and they're going to be up here harping, and so I just want to catch it on the front. I know there is a question of, is the city liable because, and Jay's not here, but that conversation I know has been taking place with the city administrator. And so I appreciate the developer and the city giving some more details. And I thank some local folks for showing up. But at the end of the day, that street is going to come back and haunt us just like out on Lawless Road. And I don't want that to, that's on record for me. So that's my 3 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Anyone else? If not, do I have a motion to approve Resolution 64-22? I'm sorry, 63-22.
So moved.
Second.
And before we vote, Philip, you have a comment?
Yes, ma'am. Ben mentioned in his presentation an additional recommendation that's not in the staff report, which was to include, and I'm sorry, let me get back to that section, to include, I believe, a couple additional conditions of approval related to the developer providing staff a copy of a recorded covenants restricting the uses to single family, and I think also having a plat note that it's to be single family development in order to cover some of those earlier concerns. And so I would just ask that those that made the motion and second the motion, if you would amend your motion to include those two requirements as number 6 and number 7. Ben, is that correct? You were recommending that?
We can certainly add that. That's no problem.
So then we can make our motion to approve Resolution 63-22 with listed conditions?
The listed conditions as in the staff report plus condition 6 for recorded covenants and condition 7 for a plat note restricting to single family use.
Okay. So
I would like to amend my motion to include number 6
and 7.
And 7.
Second. Ready? Roll call.
Hunt,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns.
No.
Motion is approved. Next is Resolution 64-22, approval of the 2023 budget. Christina? And before we get started, one of our directors has asked if our staff who is here, who they are very appreciative of their presence here. They don't get to see a lot of the staff very often. They would like for each of them to stand and give them their name and the department that they work in and their responsibilities. So if we could do that at this time, we'll start on this side of the building, if that's okay, and come across. Yeah.
Line up, line up, line up, everybody,
Everybody
line up.
knows him.
Good evening, Jeremy Kreiner. I'm the fire chief, responsible for the oversight and management of the fire department.
Thank you, Chief. That's all of you guys, one at a time.
That's the only one.
Come on.
Anthony Stokes, IT manager.
Thank you.
Good evening. Randall Clark, senior building inspector.
Thank you, Randall.
Kevin Moore, city engineer.
Thank you.
Speak up.
Danny Ferreen, Water-Wastewater superintendent.
Thank you, Danny.
James Harris, community services manager.
Good ball.
James.
Charlie Crandall, recreation coordinator for Parks and Rec.
Thank you.
Chase Fine, Silent Springs Police Department, lieutenant.
Thank you.
And Rhodes, senior planner.
Stephanie Friedel, library manager.
Kimberly Williams, accounting manager.
Thank you.
Travis Cheney, Parks and Rec manager.
Thank you.
Charles Zimbick, battalion chief, fire department.
Thank you.
Sandra Saxton, I'm the chief court clerk.
Thank you.
Kevin Whaler, superintendent at solid waste.
Thank you.
Misty McLaughlin, HR manager.
Thank you.
John Bland, electric department, construction superintendent.
And Johnny, how many years have you been with the city?
Working on 41.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, he's only 52. That's the crazy
I
thing.
know, it's amazing, isn't it?
Tony Brown, wastewater treatment plant supervisor.
Thank you, Tony.
Yeah, Josh Napier, water treatment plant superintendent.
Told you
Armina
I was gonna
Cripps.
get you up there.
Yeah. Armina Cripps, maintenance superintendent.
How long have you been here, Amanda?
18 years.
I was going to say, she's
She's
so long
been
she
here a
can't
while.
remember.
Yeah.
Dennis Kendi, street department superintendent.
And Dennis, how
Same
many
with-
years have you been
Same
with
with
us?
this guy. Come on.
37.
Oh,
All right.
in the blood.
And for Director Burns, Steve Gorzek, Public Works Director.
Thank you, Steve.
Don Clark, community development director.
Thank you, Don. Thank you all. We appreciate that very much.
Christina?
Christina Patricius,
Yes.
finance director.
Thank you, Christina.
How many years, Christina?
Almost 10. So.
You kind of were reluctant. You weren't sure you were. The only ones that were worried about is like some of them, they weren't, do I tell my job title? I'm like, yes, don't you know what you're.
What they're thinking is, do I really have to do
And
this?
some of them generational, like Farine, wherever he went. Like, yeah.
Thank you all
That's
very
what I
much.
meant. It's in the blood with some
It
of them.
is, yes. And Christina, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the board is required to adopt a budget each year, and the 2023 budget that has been proposed has been reviewed over the past several workshops. As previously noted, now is the time to propose any amendments to the budget, and staff, all of us, are available for question.
Thank you very much. So I will first ask if there is anyone in the audience that has a comment or question about the approval of the budget that we have presented. If they're not, directors, comments or questions?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Brad.
I just, I like to thank city staff, and I'd like to thank the board and then the committee for Sager Creek, for, first of all, not denying the 412 medium project, but taking those funds and rolling that into Sager Creek. I think it speaks volume of relocating funds into a project that will potentially, over the next 2 to 3 years, have a larger impact than trying to address the problems on 412. That's just going to be a long-term, I don't want to call it an eyesore, but you know, it is what it is. So I thank the board for that, and I think city staff being flexible in that, even though it's shortchanged $12,708. I've forgiven that personally, because I know it will go into general fund and probably used somewhere else. But I'm excited about that project, and I will show up for my 3 minutes over the next few years to ensure that James Fuller's dream will come to some sort of realization within most of our lifetimes. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to say thank you to the staff that have come in this evening for all the work that's been done on the budget. I know this is not just an overnight deal. It starts early in the summertime. But for some reason, I feel like I need to be serving hamburgers and hot dogs when y'all are in here. Get back to that picnic that we have once a year. So it's good to see you all. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Carol.
I too want to thank everyone, all the staff of the city that put the budget together. It's not just 1 or 2 people, it is everybody working together. And I appreciate all the effort that went into creating this budget. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Madam Mayor,
Me?
since we're thanking, I will jump on the thank you bandwagon, 'cause I appreciate it too. I know there's a lot of work that goes into deciding what's needed, deciding how to cut things that you want but maybe could do without. So we just appreciate the care that you take with setting the budget every year, and Christina for your presentation of that.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Marla.
I also would like to thank everyone. It's nice to put faces to the names. And does seniority or number of years serviced, does that have anything to do with the amount of money you get to spend? Like,
In Johnny's case,
might
yes.
think about that. You
Oh,
know?
No.
So budgets are not easy. So thank you all.
Anyone else?
I'll just say
Yes.
I appreciate the staff being here tonight. It is good to see the faces I've known so long, some of you. And you could be home watching Grey's Anatomy, instead you're here tonight, and we appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you, David. Is there anyone else?
I always like to see our men. I give her a hard time. Give us a smile. That's what I
She's fun to give a hard time to, isn't she? She is. Philip, any comments from you?
No, ma'am. Just again, thanking the staff. It's always a difficult time trying to start with budgets, making budget requests. Christina and I sitting down with each of you and going, line item by line item, saying, is this necessary? Do we have to have it? And then bringing that budget and going through the presentation with you as the board. We all thank you for your patience and your diligence in listening to the presentations and asking us the questions, because it's important that you understand what it's in the budget that you ultimately pass. So I thank both sides of the room. I thank staff for their support and their input, and putting up with me, asking them lots of sometimes stupid questions or very poignant questions about their budget, and then turning around and thanking the board for your input and your diligence in putting up with the presentation, because I know it's a lot of information. We go through it as, not quickly, but it's a lot of information to try to get to. And there's there's always more needs than there is revenue, and there will always be that way. So we try to pick what's the most important, whether it's streets, drainage, or a new vehicle, and move it from that standpoint. So, Madam Mayor, that's all I have. I just thank everybody in the room. Even
Oh, you know what
Santa
Philip
Claus.
does? He goes to you guys and says, I know this is a stupid question, but I need to know. And then when the board asks, he goes, I'm glad you asked that question. And he's ready.
Thank you, Philip. So, directors, if there is no other questions, I will ask for a motion to approve Resolution 6422 for approval of the 2023 budget.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Allen,
I had just one question. This
Yes.
includes what Christina put in the changes of what Brad was saying, the Sager Creek, that the amendment, right?
Yes.
That's part of, okay, just checking.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Carol?
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes?
Hunt.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next is Resolution 61-22, our compensation plan. And I believe, Misty, you have the floor.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Board. Tonight we are going to do the approval of the Resolution 6122 adopting the 2023 compensation plan. On September 6th, Mr. Bruce Johansson presented the 2023 compensation study. All of you have the documentation and the presentation. Staff have reviewed that, and we are asking for the approval of the compensation plan, just implementing the new JER-HR compensation study as presented, and implementing the JER-HR step compensation plan for fire and police to be more competitive. And staff is available for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Misty. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on Resolution 64-22?
Betsy Blair, Finn, 710 Red Oak Drive, Siloam Springs.
Thank you.
And I'm not sure if this is a question for Misty or Mr. Patterson. Correct me if I'm wrong. Will this compensation plan bring everybody like $15 an hour or more? Is that what I heard? Okay. How? What about salaried employees? How does that work for them?
There's ranges.
Misty, will you come to the mic, please?
There's ranges that they would fall in on the compensation plan.
So, say right now, it averaged.
That's it.
Okay, you guys are going
I'm
to have
sorry.
to like
Come to the mic whenever you're
ask all your
So-
questions and then let her
Okay.
answer. How about that?
So let's say somebody's salary and it equals out to $13 an hour right now. Will their salary change so that it'll be $15.75 an hour?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
At the beginning of the year. At the beginning of the year.
Thank you both. Anyone else? Directors? Comments, questions? There is none? Yes, Brad.
So as I'm looking through deferred, are we also including this, city has a tiered benefit-based program with the past 35 years, so when the compensation options, are we including this in this plan also? Is this the time for that?
No, sir.
Separate?
That's a different discussion.
Yeah.
A lot of compensation words in here, so I wasn't sure. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, David.
I'm just going to preface my comments with the fact they have nothing to do with the person involved in the job. Long ago, the city clerk was one of the very top authoritative, respected figures in the city, and I'm really saddened to see the pay level so low. For the city clerk, it's below the court clerk. And I'm sorry, no one's going to like this, but I have a really hard time with the HR manager changing to HR director and the salary jumping from $70,000 to $90,000, because that takes it above the city engineer, who has a degree in engineering, police captain, an IT manager. It's just quite a jump that I just can't support. I've done HR. I have a college degree in it. I've run 1,600 employees amongst many other companies that had smaller number. And 14 plus years with the city, of which I've actually seen 2 previous HR people give themselves raises that did not set well. There's no secrets in an organization. We just all have to know that. Is everything public, especially with the city, the municipal city? But I have a real problem because of jumping such a high level that is much higher for this job position to be above positions that, to me, usually have more education, more experience, and it just kind of surprises me. And to say that, I'm saying I'm also disappointed to see the city clerk position be nearly $40,000 less than the HR director, but not in a higher level as it used to be 10 plus years ago. It was much, much higher because it was a position that so much centered around. And so I'm having a hard problem. I can't support this as it is written now. And I don't have a problem with the other classifications, but I have a problem with changing the HR manager to HR director because of this massive leap in salary minimum that literally leapfrogs so many other established positions. So I'm just speaking from a position of experience myself.
Anything else, David?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor,
Mindy?
could we get an explanation of why that recommendation was made?
I can speak to a little bit, and Christina can speak to it. The recommendation on those salary ranges are based on job descriptions and based on Mr. Johansson's work as it relates to what the same or similar positions are being paid in the other cities that we studied and the private sector that was studied. Christina, you're welcome to add anything, but it's the compensation plan is really based on the analysis that Mr. Johansson did based on his review of the market.
Position by position.
Position by position in the job descriptions.
Yes. Excuse me, Christina Patrichis, Finance Director. Every job description in the city was forwarded to Mr. Johansson, and that is how he made his assessment.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? If not, do I have a motion to approve Resolution 61-22 for the 2023 compensation plan?
So moved.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Carroll.
Yes.
Sappington.
No for further questions and address Director Allen's issue.
Wiley.
Did you say Smiley? I'm sorry.
Yes. I'm
Yes.
sorry. Burns.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Allen.
No.
Motion is approved. Next will be our staff reports with the deferred compensation update. Misty, or is that going to be Christina? Okay.
Mayor, members of the board, Christina Patricius, Finance Director. When the employee benefit comparison summary was presented to the board of directors, at least 2 directors indicated they would like to consider changing contributions. Currently, as a percent of payroll, the city contributes anywhere from 6% to 24%, with public safety workers receiving the highest contribution. Deferred contribution options presented in the memo will add anywhere from just under 168,000 to just over 517,000, and staff is available for questions.
Thank you, Christina. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address Resolution 61-22? There is not. And Philip?
Madam Mayor, there's no resolution before
Oh,
the
I'm
board
sorry.
on this.
Yep,
This
I'm
is
sorry.
up for discussion.
Yes.
We brought this information back with options for discussion if the board wishes to direct staff to come back with a resolution at a future meeting. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Scared me there for a
Yeah.
second.
Was expecting you to read something.
I was, that's right. I'm on a roll with resolutions, okay? So that being the case, this being a conversation or discussion, directors.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
we have 2 options where it will negatively impact a number of employees. Is it possible that we can grandfather them in to what they are right now without going back? That is what I would like to see happen. I don't want anybody to lose anything in this plan. I don't think that's fair.
Christina, is that?
That is possible to do that. All the board has to do is agree to what they would like to see, and we will bring back something. I believe it would be a handbook amendment.
This is in the handbook, so to change this would require a resolution amending the handbook. There may be some additional handbook amendments that we might propose. But the question to the board is, currently today, there's 6% that the city matches. Employees have to put in 3%. There's a group of employees where the city matches 8% or puts in 8%, 10%, 12, 15, and up. So the question is, if the board wishes to increase their contribution from 6 to 8 and move those employees who are only obtaining 6% up to 8, or increase the contribution from 6 and 8 to 10%, or 6 and 8 and 10 to 12%. You've got the numbers there, and then if you, as was stated by Christina and Director Smiley, if you moved everybody to a set percentage, there's some savings, but there are negative impacts to some employees.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Brad.
So I'll put on my, I'm going to give 2 sides. I'm going to put on my former employee hat. And I liked when we made our contribution as firemen to ICMA, because I didn't take pay raises for a while. And then I retired. And then we hired a educated city administrator, and he asked me a question. And that question was, are you as smart as it appears on paper? And I said, no, it is not. I'm not that smart. But I had taken my ICMA out from the city and rolled it over to somebody locally that were in Ward 2, an investor in Ward 2, and because I thought it was the right thing to do. I had no idea. So the fire department is double dipping, right? I mean, we had a little law there, and even though there's another opportunity for them to do through lot fee. And other city employees didn't like the fire police plan, because we actually have a retirement plan, and then Johnny and them have to work for infinity, 41 years, right? And so that's always been a stab back and forth back in the day. My response was always, we all have, it's like joining the military. We all have an option. You just got to sign the right paper, right? But we know fire and police carries a lot of baggage. They take a lot with them into their next life. And the other deal, so that went away, and I talked to these firemen here. I didn't see a great impact. They really didn't feel too options about it. They didn't care. I think we've done a great deed with them on this one here, bumping that pay up. And that gets them, we're still not competitive in the region, but we have started the process. And at the end of the day, no matter how good we think our package is, our health insurance, we love living in Siloam, at the end of the day, we have to give the employee a livable wage. And so we're attempting to do that, and that work will continue on. But when it comes over to this, if I had 20 plus years with the city, and they were taking away some of that retirement plan. Johnny, as an example, I don't know what his number is. I'm assuming it's year 52, but I'm just guessing. And then he's counting part of that ICMA as his retirement package. I could already tell. And so it's right to grandfather those employees in. I am in favor of impacting the greatest impact, which would be the 12% for the 182 employees, which is just a little over 500,000. And I take that and I'll bring up Mr. Heifel again. We've done a lot of good things for the city. Sanitation picking up, all those things that Bob talked about, but the biggest thing was employees. So our compensation plan, bumping them up to that 12%, I think that makes us look even more attractive. And I think it's money well spent, not only now, their impact, but just for the long term of the city. So that would be the grandfather those employees in and impact the 182 with the 12%. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
Madam
Anyone
Mayor?
else? Yes, David.
Christina, maybe you could tell me, I don't know, or Philip, how did there get to be such a wide range from 6 to 18%? And when did those numbers get, are they based on some state number, or was this originally voted as the employee handbooks?
This, as far as I can tell, and I've had to tap Dennis Kendi and Johnny and
The living
Glenn.
history book?
Yes.
Yeah.
And basically what we understand is that it has been tiered since inception. So I'm not sure where those numbers came from, but it was sometime back in the 80s.
And it had that big of a difference? Okay.
Correct.
That's quite a few years back then. I was unaware, so I didn't know if we'd based it on something or if you knew if it was a state or other thing, so thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And David, along with that, we were also, we were capped on our contributions also. So we, if we got 6%, we can only contribute additional 3, cap it, whatever that number was. So there was a cap at the, I was a retired line, a low tier. And so that was our cap on that, but that difference has been there for a number of years.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Carol.
I'm not sure I made myself specifically clear, but I do want to move all 180 employees to 12%, and I want to grandfather the ones that it will negatively impact, so that they're still up to where they were.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Mindy.
My biggest concern when looking at this was taking away. I was not in favor of taking away from either the 9 or 23 employees, and I can go either 10 or 12%, and it sounds like there's definitely interest in moving up to the 12%, and I think that does help our overall compensation plan, hopefully make it more attractive to come here and stay here with Johnny.
Thank you, Mindy. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Marla.
I agree with Director Smiley, and I don't think we should take away. I think it's very important that they've worked to where they have gotten, and we need to not take that away. And I think it'll also be easy if everybody's on the same tier and not having to figure out what tier they're on or how much, and if everybody's the same. So that's how I feel.
Thank you, Marla.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
So I
ahead.
need to get my head straight when, whether Smiley, Director Smiley or Brad mentioned grandfather, they're saying those above 12% stay where they are. Is that what that means?
That's
I
my
believe
intent.
that's what,
That's
that's
what
what
I'm
I
intending.
I wanted to
They-
make sure the
they-
grandfather term meant
They do not go back.
they
They
don't go
stay where
backward.
they are.
They stay where they are, okay.
Madam
But
Mayor.
others below would come up
Move to 12.
to 12. Okay.
Philip.
May I ask for additional clarification? So, generally speaking, and I think you saw this when we did a couple of meetings ago, we brought you a benefit comparison package, and you saw it in Rogers. Different issue because it was related to Rogers was changing vacation and sick days to PTO. And so they were saying existing employees keep your vacation and sick days, new employees get PTO. When you talk about grandfathering in this case, I want to make sure that we understand it before we try to draft language, that everybody would go to 12% with the exception of those that are earning more. And when that position is replaced, it would fall back to 12%. So eventually, as new people come in and replace those earning more, they would eventually fall back to the 12%. So over time, everybody would end up at 12%. Is that what I understand?
That's what I
Yes.
intend.
Okay, thank you.
The position, not the person. The person is grandfathered in, not the position.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Reed.
I would be in agreement with Director Smiley's version on that, and also with what Administrator Patterson has spoken.
Thank you. So Philip, do you have your direction now?
Yes,
You
ma'am.
think you've got, okay, very good. So if there are no other questions or comments and you have what you need, then thank you, Christina.
Madam Mayor,
And-
one more question. So when the proposal comes to us, that will give us the difference with what it will cost for those 9 extra. So the 9 persons that are grandfathered in, it will end up being a little bit more than the $485,000 to next year's budget, correct?
It won't, it will not add, but the total, it will increase, just over 517,000.
So when we bring, when we bring a resolution adopting amendments to the handbook, there will be an additional condition with that recommendation that approval of this is automatically a budget amendment to the 2023 budget to the
Right.
tune of $517,000.
Yes.
I don't know how you'd word it, but I like the way Director Hunt said grandfathering the person, not the position, so that
Well,
you're,
yeah.
yeah, I don't know how you'd word it, but I think that's a key as well.
The missing attorney will find the right.
Was he not?
As
I never can tell.
Yeah,
when
he's under the weather, but as I
Okay.
tell him, write a very warm and fuzzy way to say that, right?
Yeah,
So,
okey-doke.
Thank you. So we will move on then to our administrator's report. Philip?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Director Allen asked during the budget workshop about any future amendments to the 2023 budget. And after I stated there's only one that I was aware of, Christina reminded me that there will likely be a few others, maybe in the first quarter, due to equipment being ordered this year, and due to supply chains, we are likely not to get that equipment in before the end of the year. So if the equipment comes in 2023, we will have to amend the budget accordingly. The money will basically be saved in 2022 and then amended for 2023 and spent that way, if that makes sense, because we've already ordered it, already signed the contract, but the equipment may not be here in time. On the expenditure report for the greater than $30,000, $37,000 in the streets division for 250 tons of road salt and beet juice for road de-icing. We already started seeing some of that weather events yesterday. At the airport, we purchased 8,000 gallons of Jet A fuel for $35,720.80. In the electric department, we purchased two 3,795-pound reels of overhead primary wire for inventory for $36,507.90. And again, in the street department, $44,260 for storm drainage pipe to begin the Villa View widening and side path project. As it relates to the resolution 6121, which authorized for inventory a greater amount in budgeting, $95,766 in the water division for 264 cellular water meters for inventory and new customers. In the electric department, $91,575 for 15,000 feet of 4/0 secondary wire and 15,000 feet of 2/0 secondary wire for inventory. In the electric department, $79,725 for 15,000 feet of 350 secondary wire. The other updates that I have for you, we did the broadband study. We talked about that earlier today because that was an amendment to the 2022 budget. After we did that study, the direction from the board was to issue an RFI and see if there was interest from other internet service providers, ISPs, that might be willing to partner with the city. We have received 3 responses, one from Cox, one from Ozark Go, and one from Brightspeed, who has recently purchased CenturyLink. Staff is in the process of reviewing all those and trying to really hone in, along with the CCG Consulting, our broadband consultant. We'll be having some discussions with each of those companies in the near future, and ultimately we'll be bringing a report back to this board for discussion and further consideration. The same thing as it relates to the Siloam Springs Water Resource Company property. When we discussed the potential sale of that, I was directed to look into land trusts that might be interested in a conservation easement, and I've done that. I've contacted the Northwest Arkansas Land Trust and Ozark Land Trust. Northwest Arkansas Land Trust has shown an interest in potentially a conservation easement. Ozark Land Trust is out of Columbia, Missouri. They work very closely with Northwest Arkansas Land Trust, which is out of Fayetteville. Being that Northwest Arkansas Land Trust recently acquired a lot of property around the old Lake Francis subdivision to the west of Arkansas Highway 59, Ozark Land Trust has decided to sort of back away from any participation and knowing that Northwest Arkansas Land Trust has interest. So I'm working with Northwest Arkansas Land Trust to work through some of the particulars. We'll ultimately bring a report to you. However, I want to at least inform you here that there is, when you do a conservation easement, there is a stewardship and legal defense fund contribution. And generally that, I believe, is about $25,000 per conservation easement. That contribution goes to making sure that the land trust has money to monitor annually the property to ensure that the conservation easement is being complied with, and also if there's any enforcement requirements. So I'm working with them to work through that, but eventually we'll bring some information back to the board as it relates to that. We also talked previously about a community survey. That survey, I hope, will go out after Thanksgiving, the week after Thanksgiving. I reviewed the final version of that yesterday, and we also reviewed the final Spanish version of that. It'll be mailed out to 400 plus residents for a statistically valid survey. They'll be able to do it either by mail or to go online and do it from that standpoint. So we're looking very forward to seeing those results. And then lastly, as it relates to sales tax receipts, for the month, the city is up 7.9% compared to the same month, October last year. Year-to-date, we're up just over 9%, 9.1%. The county sales tax receipts that we collect are up for the month 6.9%, and for the year 3.5%. And speaking of sales tax, I want to publicly thank the public who voted recently as it relates to the 1-cent sales tax split. I want to thank the board for asking the public and putting that on the ballot. You requested that the public approve the current split of the 1-cent sales tax, 40% streets, 20% fire, 20% police, and 20% general fund. That annually today puts about $2 million into streets, $1 million into police and fire, and about $1 million in the general fund. And the public was gracious enough to approve that question on the ballot, which now makes that split permanent until you or some future board decides to put another question on the ballot. So it's not a 10-year provision. It's now permanent going forward. So I think for police and fire, from their standpoint, it will help them budget and do budgets into the future and not be constrained to a 10-year time horizon. Madam Mayor, that's my report. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. So at this time, we would move to our director's reports. I would like to first say, again, thank you to our staff for being here, for your participation, and also to allow you, if you would so choose, that you can leave at this time. We are through with all of the budget discussions, and so that is, you are perfectly welcome to stay. But if you are wanting to leave, you may also do that. So thank you. And I want to wish you and all of our citizens a happy Thanksgiving. And it will be here next week, which I can't believe that. But so with that, we will move.
I was gonna, Dennis, way to make the movement, Dennis. Way to go, buddy.
Dennis thinks we ought to stand for all your years of service.
So with that, we will move on to the directors, and we will reverse what we did last week, or last meeting. David, we will start with you. Mindy, come around to you, and if you will, please hold your motion for adjournment. David?
All right. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to say thank you to the voters as well for keeping the tax split. It was a very smart move, and I think it was the best move for the future of our departments of safety. And I think that the voters saw that, and I was appreciative of them. I want to give a round of applause to our new governor, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I think this is like the decade of the woman. Our first time we've had more women on this board came about in 2019, and our first female mayor in 2021, and now our first female governor, and I couldn't be more proud. I brought that up when we had the elections in 2018 of, excuse you, Brad, but the other three were all women, and it was a big deal to me. I was really proud. So thank you to Arthur Holbert for coming tonight and giving more input, and congrats to Brian and the city golf course for raising the amount of money they needed to. That was a nice bonus to hear that tonight. And then I want to beg for publicly to have people hear me. The Christmas parade's coming up, and something I experienced last year, I hope we don't experience this year. And with, I think, is Travis still here? Yes. You're new, so you get to prove yourself this year. Last year, we had the street sweepers come about after the parade, and there were still a lot of people downstairs, or downtown. In fact, eating at some of the restaurants, and that just stirred up all kinds of and the leaves had not been swept beforehand. So I'm just asking, can we get the leaves done beforehand, the trash receptacles emptied beforehand, and then maybe, I don't know, do the street sweeping the next morning or something, because it really turned off a lot of our public likes to hang out downtown when it's so beautifully lit and the parade's just gone through, and especially when our restaurants are open late. So I just wanted to publicly say, please, 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 I'm asking. And then I don't know if everybody's heard, but actually 30 years I've been living there and never had anybody kill a deer on my property. We had our police respond so well the night that I just out of the blue had a man show up at 9:30 and hide out on my property and killed a deer. And I was pleased the next day. I didn't know that you could do this, but when you have something like that happen, animal control will come and haul it away. And that's nice to know. That was a new one on me. But I just want to encourage people, if you hear a shot, don't just assume that it's irrelevant or not important enough to call the police. The police need to know if you hear something that could be a gunshot, please take the time to call 524-4118, option 1 on the recording, and it gets you right through to dispatch. And so I have been proud to protect those deer for 30 years, and I hated to see a dead buck. But I am more concerned about somebody getting shot by a random shot, because I live with neighbors all around, and that easily could have gone and hit somebody's home or through a window. So please, if you hear a gunshot, I'm encouraging you to call the police. It doesn't matter what you think that, oh, I don't want to take up your time, this is nothing. It could be something. So if you hear something, please reach out. And unless I think of something later, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Carol?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to thank every one of the staff that came here today. It's nice to see faces and put names together. I really appreciate that. I also want to thank the staff for starting to put up the holiday spirit throughout town. I think that's wonderful. I'm so excited that the golf course is going to continue, and I appreciate what the chamber did to get that taken care of and reaching that goal of 90,000. I want to thank the citizens for voting in the sales tax again, and that it's now going to be permanent. That will be a big boost to the city. Congratulations to Mindy on her election results. And thank you to all of our citizens, and hope you have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Carol. Reed?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you to the employees that were able to be a part of our meeting this evening, and all the work that you did in the previous weeks and months to prepare for a budget. Looking forward to the new year and what it has in store, a year that will begin without pandemic. That has a lot of hope built into it. And wow, next week, Thanksgiving. We're here, people. Thank you.
Thank you, Reed. Marla?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I just want to encourage everybody to have some family time next week. Enjoy your time with your family, eating turkey and stuffing and everything. Some of the things that I need to bring up is the concern for people that are blowing leaves out of their yards into the streets. To me, that's the same as grass clippings, but a little bit worse. So I don't know if we have any guidelines or anything about blowing leaves in the street, but I think we need to look into that, because, I mean, it's an easy way to get rid of your leaves, but I don't think it's what we want going down the drain or clogging up the drains. Also, it was neat to see all of the employees here tonight, and I think that moving forward from that, it'd be nice to celebrate each department and invite them to, you know, come to the meetings and let us see them and appreciate them and, you know, love on them. Everybody likes to be appreciated. And FYI, the Thanksgiving bags are going out at the Manna Center, and within 2 hours, we had helped 170 families with turkeys today, and then interviewed another 49 families in that time to assist with food for their weekly needs. So this is the time of giving the time that we're in, the holidays. And if you want to give anything, we can always use canned food and staple items. And just, it's been a pleasure serving on the board, and, 2 more times, Brad, and we're out of here. Thank you.
Thank you, Marla. Brad?
I want to say a lot of things to that, but they're all inappropriate, so I will move on. Veterans Day Parade, I appreciate the citizens that came down. It was a decent turnout this year. Some years they're hit and miss, and for whatever reason, and I just thank folks for showing up. I know the American Legion of VFW appreciate that. Turkey trot's right around the corner, so if you enjoy that, that's great action. Thank you to the voters. There was a moment of concern with some scuttlebutt out there, but it is a good thing. Those funds will continue to grow as our city grows, and I know the fire and police are extremely appreciative of that. And then lastly, it is a good day for the city employees. That was a long time coming. So I'm not wrapping up anything or quitting. I'm going to move on. 32 years of city business as an employee and as a Ward 2 representative. It's fantastic, and then I do believe in new blood, and it's just time to move on down the road. And so with that, I do agree with David. The city clerk position going into 24 needs to be looked at, and there's probably some adjustment within that budget that really needs to be addressed, and I'm sure next year some other things may surface, but I'm excited for the guys at sanitation. I bring them up before the guys at wastewater. They deal with all our stuff that goes down, and there's nobody in this room that wants to do that job in inclement weather. And so they deserve that. And the CDL drivers, I think going into the future, that increase needs to be looked at. And so I think we're on the right path. We've done the right thing, and I'm sure future boards will continue to expound upon that pay scale. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Mindy?
Okay, well, I will say again what others have said about thanking the staff for being here tonight. I was trying to write down names and positions and got lost after about 6 of you. So hopefully I'll be able to continue seeing some of you on a regular basis. I know I've been with you for 4 years. I've learned a lot, and hopefully I will continue learning over the next 4 years and continue getting to meet and spend time with you all. I really enjoy the May luncheon when we get to come and hang out with you all. And so anyway, just thanks again for coming. Thank you to Mary with the museum, and Stacy with Main Street, and Arthur also for coming. Arthur, thank you for your work in getting the funds needed for the golf course. I think that is going to be something that we could really potentially see a good turnaround here in the next few months. I appreciated being able to go to the Veterans Day Parade. With Thanksgiving just around the corner, I do find myself thinking of all the things I'm thankful for, and one of those things is just the freedom I enjoy, and that is thanks to the veterans who have sacrificed for that freedom. Friends, family, just so much to be thankful for, and just this city, the city that I live in, that I've brought my kids up in. Thank you to those of you who helped make this city such a great place to be. So I will not move that we adjourn, because I think we are going to an executive session now.
Thank you.
And I will get that privilege when we come back.
Thank you, ma'am. So yes, I do need to ask that for a motion that we retire into an executive session. So do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Sappington.
Yes.
Miley.
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion is approved. Is there any discussion on the motion? There is not. Then I will say that this body has voted to retire into executive session to consider the employment of an employee We will reconvene in public session to present and vote on any action arrived at in that private session. So with that, we are adjourned to the meeting room in the administrator's office. We will call this Board of Directors back into session. And at this time, is there a motion?
Yes, I move that we allow the same COLA for the city administrator as the other employees are receiving for 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Same sign. There is none. We are adjourned. Thank you.